Now, moving on, the Senate has deferred consideration of 27 nominees for the position of resident electoral commissioners, and that's due to what they say is President Muhammadu Buhari's failure to sack acting EFCC chairman Ibrahim Magu.
In what appears to be a showdown with the presidency, senators directed Senate President Bukola Saraki to immediately engage President Buhari on why Magu is still heading the EFCC. Sumner Sambu has the story.
The list of 27 nominees for the position of resident electoral commissioners was indicated on the Senate order paper for consideration and subsequent screening and confirmation. But when the item was set for debate, senators kicked against the exercise. President Muhammadu Buhari's failure to sack acting EFCC chairman Ibrahim Magu, following his rejection by the Senate, is not going down well with the angry senators.
Let us not act on this next until we hear from the president what happened to Magu. Magu is terrorizing us because we disqualify him. If we disqualify a candidate and that person continues to act, why are they sending this thing to us to act? It is better. Without these people, election can still go on.
I think that this matter is going to be referred to the committee. We still have enough time.
No.
Can I, in conclusion, say that I'm pleading with my colleagues.
In what is building up to be another face-off with the presidency, the senators demand that Senate President Bukola Saraki must immediately take up President Muhammadu Buhari on the issue within the next 2 weeks before they can consider the list of commissioners.
Any petitions? Hopefully, in the interest of this democracy that we're all fighting for, and the right things will be done.
About this time last year, I raised this issue that about 20-something states are without resident electoral commissioners. So if there is any delay, certainly it's not from this Senate. So that point needs to be made clear. We are also mindful of the fact that there's need to put things in place ahead of the elections. I just want to plead with our colleagues that we have a time frame to stand it down to enable the President of the Senate to pass our sentiments over to the executive.
We agree with your amendment that we should not throw out the whole of this list completely. Let us not stampede you.
The Senate earlier had a 2-hour closed-door session where senators resolved to defend the upper chamber's integrity against any attack, insisting they refuse to be intimidated for carrying out their constitutional responsibilities. Sumner Sambu, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, some say the Senate, as a matter of fact, the National Assembly has perfected the art of majoring in minors and minimizing the important things that really matter to the nation. Now, from the issue of the SGF to the AGF to Hamid Ali and the uniforms, and of course, Magu is somewhere in between a couple of times.
Now, each case has its own merit, really. For that of the SGF, you say it's within their purview to do that. They have the right to look into issues
But
of
then again, the question
and all
is,
that.
where is the place of the Constitution in all of this?
And this is based on the Constitution. Section 4 gives them some leverage to do all that. And of course, the issue of the uniform and Hamid Ali, that's also...
All right, you know what, let's bring our guest in. He's a lawyer. He should be able to shed a lot of light on this. Ahmed Abbas, it's good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, somehow, the Constitution has a way of, has suffered seriously, whether, you know, between those quarrels, between the Senate and the presidency, or the executive, if you like. Somehow it always takes the back seat, and nobody, you know, focuses on what does the Constitution say specifically about this particular matter, whatever the case is. What is going on here?
Thank you. As far as I'm concerned, this is my take on what is transpiring. There's absolutely no major issue as far as the Constitution is concerned.
Yes.
The functions of the departments of government are clearly stated. But the modus operandi, the way and manner they go about executing or carrying out their function is what is creating this particular problem now. Like Magu has been, was not confirmed by the Senate, and they are now hanging their confirmation of the INEC commissioners
yes.
on the fact that they want the president to sack Mago or remove Mago. Why is Mago still acting as the EFCC chairman? That's not within their purview. It's not
but
within
isn't
their
it because, as far as they're concerned, at least what they're saying is that there seems to be this disrespect for the legislature coming from the executive? That should that be happening? And what they're trying to do is ensure these principles of separation of powers and, of course, checks and balances.
It is not within their purview to determine who the president sacks or not.
Okay, Ahmed, we'll
yes.
come back to that. I'd like us
Yes.
to look at the section we are talking about as it affects Magu and its confirmation and what the Senate has a right to do.
Yes.
But we go to Port Harcourt now and bring in a public affairs analyst, Dan Abia. Many thanks for joining us today, Dan. What do you make of the olabalu going on, the crisis going on, rather, within the Senate and the presidency? Who should blink first?
Thank you very much. Good morning. I think that what is going on in between the government and, of course, between the executive and the legislature is quite very unfortunate. It does appear that the two arms of government are not really taking the interest of Nigerian masses, seriously. Because we are in a recession now, even though the government will come up to say that we have stepped across the line of recession. We have not. Really, we are still, neck deep into recession. And of course, if you walk along the streets of Nigeria, you will feel what the masses, the people, the common people are feeling on daily basis. So for a government that was supposed to be so much concerned about the situation of average Nigerians, then to engage in this, because I call it conflict of interest, conflict of ego, and it's not really serving us anything. They are involved in this conflict of interest because the Senate knows that it has, some sort of axe to grind with members of the executive. All right, Of course, Mr. President appointed Magu, and if you check in the Senate, there are quite a number of senators that are either being investigated by EFCC or having cases in the court, cases of corruption in the court. Of course, we don't forget that of the Senate President and the rest of them. Now, you will not expect these people to sit idle and see them being rubbished. I see that is the conflict of interest I'm talking about. And Mr. President, on the other hand, appears to have understood that the only person that can do this job for him, as far as EFCC is concerned, as far as fighting corruption is concerned, is Magu. But the question is, of the 170 million Nigerians, by what they ask us, by what they tell us, is it only Magu that is qualified to be in that position?
That's the question that
so why can't you look inward?
That's the question that's been asked from some people, but let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll see if we have answers to those questions. Stay with us. Right, you're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the executive or Senate executive face-off, if you like. Is this all the drama that's been going on? Is it in the interest of the nation? Or is it about ego here? What exactly is going on? How much clout do the people at the helm of affairs, whether it's at the presidency, Buhari himself, or the Senate president, how much clout do they really have in their different arms of government? Well, Ahmed Abbas is a lawyer. He's here with us. And of course, in our Port Harcourt studio is Dan Abia, public affairs analyst. Let me put this question to you, Dan. How much clout or influence do you think the Senate president, in the person of Bukola Saraki, has in the case of holding the presidency to ransom over the confirmation of the 27 resident electoral commissioners? He actually pleaded with his colleagues to bring it down to 1 week to allow the president to do something. But the senators insisted on their 2 weeks. And of course, you have a Buhari, on the other hand, who is cautioning his nominees not to cause any kind of disaffection between the executive arm and the National Assembly. What do we make of this?
the situation is quite very dicey, you know. Though the three arms of government are independent of themselves, it's a dicey situation. And I want to believe that none of these principal actors, you know, should try to wield their powers. Because, like I said before, Nigeria is in a dire situation, in a very terrible situation economically. And so look, the Senate has the power of its own to do its biddings. The executive, Mr. President, also has the power to do his own bidding. But like I said, there is this check and balance, all right, in the way they execute their powers and the way they pursue whatever is their demands. And so the Senate President may actually advocate for 1 week to screen these guys, and the senators may say 2 weeks. But what happened behind the doors before they come out to make this known publicly? Something must have gone, some waters must have passed through the bridge behind the scene, all right? And I want to, like I said before, I want to believe that these guys have ego. They have the integrity to also protect. They have been rubbished much enough by the anti-graft agencies and all of that. So you will not want them to sit idle and watch things happening to them. All right. So the delay in clearing or screening the recs could be as a result of, like most people say, the inability of Mr. President to do away with Magu. And so they want to also tell Mr. President, look, we have the same power you think you are wielding.
All right.
And I want to believe that when these two elephants are allowed to fight, honestly, it is not going to it's not going to go well with common Nigerians.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
they should
Dan.
take the interests of Nigerians to heart. That
All
is
right.
what we are looking at.
Okay, so let's bring Ahmed in. Okay,
Yes.
Dan, thank you. We'll come back to you. Let's bring Ahmed in on the issue of Magu and his sack. Some will say, according to Section 171 of the 1999 Constitution, what as stipulated there, Magu can continue to act. The president can appoint him and keep him there in acting capacity. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's what the position says. Because the law made provision for where there is a vacancy. If you realize, Magu is actually running the unexpired term of Lamrudi. When there's a vacancy and the president nominates a man, he can run out the unexpired term of his predecessor. That's what the position says. That's what the position says.
And the Constitution actually envisages that situation?
Yeah, the EFCC Act envisaged that there could be a vacancy for one reason or the other. And Lamrudi was actually removed in the middle of his tenure.
Yes.
And Magu was brought in. If you check the EFCC Act, what that law provides is that this nominee will run out.
But some will also stand on Section 2, Section 3 of the Act to say, okay, no, there shouldn't be a room for an acting chairman for as long as Magu has been an acting chairman.
No, see, when you nominate a man, he's in an acting capacity pending when he's confirmed.
Yes,
he
but
becomes a substantive.
Can he act in perpetuity? That's the
No.
question.
To the end of the term inherited of his predecessor.
Okay.
Except, of course, I will buy the argument to say, okay, the Constitution overrules the EFCC Act.
No, let me say.
Exactly.
There is no law. There is no provision in our law. Those are some of the things you see, like the Jonathan Yaradua saga.
Yes.
There were lacunas until
Indeed.
there were some amendments. As of today, there is no mention of the number of times that the president can send Magu for confirmation. There is no legal provision. The president can decide to renominate Magu. There is no law inhibiting the president from doing that.
Now, beyond Magu, is there a constitutional provision for the National Assembly's stance, specifically the Senate, on the resident electoral commissioners? Can the National Assembly actually decide on its own, backed by law, to say, look, because you have not done our bidding as it concerns this particular issue, we will hold you, to ransom.
That's why
in this particular case.
Why I opened my presentation by saying,
yes,
they are simply going outside the purview of their powers. They don't have the power to compel the president to sack a particular person. That belongs
to the judiciary.
Yes, and that based on the fact that you have not, it's just an abuse of power.
Who should step in?
step in.
In this case, you have the judiciary.
Yes,
right?
yes. Look, that's why we have 3 tiers of government, and any of the arm is free to approach the court. Even the Senate can go to court to test whether they have that power to compel the president.
Instead of grandstanding.
Yes, instead of grandstanding. That's what civilized people will do. That's what civilized people will do. If you feel that the president is not acting in tandem with what you think is the provision of the law, you approach the judiciary. We are asking the president to sack Mago. He's not sacking Mago. And that's why and the president will put up his defense team.
Okay, let's take this to Dan Abia as quickly as we can before we wrap. Now, this face-off between the executive and the Senate, how does it rub off on our democracy so far? Will this be dented? Or will it make our democracy stronger?
No, it's a very serious threat to our democracy, because it appears to be a standoff between these 2 arms of government. But let me quickly bring this to bear. You see, I see since the commencement of this administration, I have observed that they do not fully, carry out the act of lobbying. All right. Now, if the executive knows how to, or should fall back on the act of lobbying, we will not see this embarrassment, because it is a huge embarrassment. It dents even the integrity of the presidency, or Mr. President himself, because he appointed Magu, and 2 times he's been rejected. Now, what if I were Mr. President? What I would do? I would send a powerful delegation to engage the Senate leadership behind closed doors, so that this thing could be resolved in the inner room.
According to the Minister of Information, Dan, according to the Minister of Information, there's a committee set up right now after yesterday's FEC. There's a committee set up to look into the matter. So maybe that will be taken care of. But let's look at 2019 election. INEC has set the date for the election as we speak, and these regs are meant to go to their state. INEC is to start the verification exercise for the PVCs, the registration.
27 of them.
You know, so what do you think will happen? Will this in any way delay INEC's timetable for the 2019 election? Dan?
No, I do not think so. I do not think so. All I know is that Bukola Saraki, the Senate president, is a true Democrat, and I think all this game will end in no time. So I do not see it affecting our democratic process. Neither will it affect the INEC calendar. I think they will stand down at a point. It will not have any negative bearing on the registration process, on democracy or the calendar, the INEC calendar for 2019 election.
Ahmed, do you think so too?
Yeah, I do not think it's going to truncate the INEC calendar for the 2019 election.
So now you have a Professor Sage, the Presidential Advisory Committee on Corruption, actually weighing in, and there seems to be likely another face-off between the Senate and the Professor Sage himself. He's saying that, look, the Senate's place is only to confirm, and that's it. Absolutely.
I align myself with the senior advocate's position. It's just to confirm. What you are seeing playing out is nothing but corruption fighting back. When you are talking about lobby with who?
Do we even have any such thing as lobbying in our democracy?
You can lobby where you have people of diverse political ideologies. You don't have control over the Senate. But this is a party that has overwhelming majority. Is it not surprising that that's what surprises so many people? That's to tell you that, look, you simply have people that are fighting for personal interest. I can tell you, if you talk about lobby, if you ask this president to lobby this present Senate, this 8 corrupt Senate, what is going to happen is that you rob my back, I rob your back.
Okay,
you drop some charges
Ahmed,
against us.
These allegations that they are corrupt are still allegations.
Yes, they are allegations.
They are allegations of law.
Ahmed, listen, I was going to say, you remember Sage himself, Professor Sage himself has been summoned by the Senate because of some words he used on the newspaper, calling the senators irresponsible and saying that they will regret the action taken. And they've summoned him, and Professor Sage said, okay, they should go to their constitution, Section 8.8 and Section 8.9. I do not forbid within the categories of somebody you can summon. That's what he says.
Well,
all right.
look. The honest truth before Nigerians is that we should tell ourselves the truth. The National Assembly has some credible men and women, but the honest truth is that we also have a National Assembly that seems to be distant from the reality of what is on ground. People are committing suicide every day by day. I expect the National Assembly to be bothered and to pass laws that would add value to Nigerians, not the kind of comedy that we are seeing presently.
All right, just hold on, gentlemen. Ahmed Abbas and Dan Abia right there in Port Harcourt. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll find out what Nigerians are saying about all of this. All right, you can be sure that the discussion continued behind the scenes over the Senate executive face-off. But at this point, let's bring in Foladele. Let us know what Nigerians are saying. Good morning, Fola.
Good morning.
That's the hallowed chamber behind you there. Is it really still hallowed?
Let's find out, eh? Okay, let's see what people are saying online. Kemute Akwamuja says, wow, the kind of individuals representing the interests of their constituents in the states, Nigeria, I hail thee. The preacher's son says, too many factions in the Senate. Nigeria is a gun country. I hope not. Bawa Emmanuel said, the Senate have vowed that Magu's head must be cut off or everything in Nigeria will be grounded to a halt. Let me quickly ask you, should we be worried, should we be scared about the people we have, you know, like someone said, representing their constituents, the fact that they just can't seem to agree? Should we be worried, or should we just see this as perfectly normal?
It's not normal at all. It's an abnormal situation because you are creating a lacuna in governance. And when there's breakdown of governance, people do not see the dividends of democracy. There'll be depression, there'll be frustration. And when you have that kind of situation, you are creating an environment for anarchy to thrive. That's simply it. Essence of governance is to impact people's life, to improve people's life. When you take away the impact of governance on people's life, you are setting an environment and an agenda for frustration to take over.
Fola, you have a question for Dan?
Yes, let me ask you the same thing, Dan. So Ahmed has spoken, and I asked him, I said, should we be scared? Should we be worried about the kind of people we have representing us, the kind of leaders we have? They just can't seem to agree, and the drama just won't stop. I mean, shouldn't we be scared?
Well, it's not strange to me. I don't think it should be a strange thing to anybody either. You know, because it has happened before. After all, in this country, we've seen them fighting, in the Senate and the House of Reps and all of that. Think of assemblies in houses of assemblies in all the states. There's been a lot of situations going on there. So this strengthens our democracy. If you ask me, it strengthens our democracy. My colleague on the studio there was saying something that lobbying is supposed not to have a place in this kind of circumstance. All right, but I disagree with him, greatly, because even though the APC has majority in that Senate, now the question is, what is the political grassroots of some of these members? They originated from PDP. You get that? And so, therefore, what Mr. President should do at this point in time is to stand his feet on ground and ensure that he is in charge of his government. Now, a situation where you...
All right, Dan, we'll have to... Dan, you know what? Just hold on. Of course, we'll come back to all of this as soon as we come back from the news update. Fola, thank you so much. First off. Okay, I'm told we might have to... Do we have to wrap here? Okay, we'll have to let the gentleman go. Thank you so much, Ahmed Abbas, for your time. Ahmed Abbas, of course, is a lawyer, and Dan Abia is a public affairs analyst.
EFCC chairman. That's what he said. So behind the scene, now you know that.
We're not in the place to employ him.